Hey, how are you? Well, I got a few questions on the lamppost project, and that was a fun project. I really enjoyed doing that kind of work, especially this time of year. It's nice to be outside. Now, a few people wanted to know what I would use for the filler, and whenever I'm doing work outside, I usually use Ready Patch. I've been using it for years, and I haven't had any problems. Now, as far as painting AZEK, you want to use, or you should use, 100% acrylic paint and 100% acrylic primer. So I've started off with Fresh Start by Benjamin Moore, and for my finish coat I'll use More Glow by Benjamin Moore. That just happens to be the paint that I'm using, but you could use any 100% acrylic paint. Now, a couple of people also had questions about the electric. How did I get the electric out? And, does it work from inside? Is there a switch inside? And yes, there was a lamppost there, and I probably should have taken some video of removing the old lamppost, but I just didn't. So that was a plus. I was already working with existing electric, and the only thing I needed to do was chisel out a little junction box in the 4x4 post. I had a question as to whether you could use regular PVC glue, the kind of glue that you would use if you're familiar with doing PVC plumbing work. And you could, but you just don't have the working time. I got a comment from Matt in Tennessee, and he explains that he had gone through all the trouble to create nice tight miters and joints, only to have them open up throughout the year, I guess because of the change in season. Now, we'll revisit this project in the spring, but I've had good luck working with AZEK, and there's one thing that you need to know, and that is AZEK expands and contracts with heat as opposed to wood. Wood expands and contracts with moisture. So for that reason, you should really only paint AZEK light colors. Gary from Scotland wanted to know what kind of nails I used in my nail gun because it's an exterior project, and I used 18 gauge galvanized nails, 1.25 inches long. And I think it probably would have been even better to use stainless steel nails, but I simply didn't have any. I also had a couple of emails about the black material that I painted at the bottom of the post, and that's roofing cement. I wanted to cover the end grain of the plywood right at the bottom there, just for a little insurance. I got a few comments about the miter cuts for this project, and is there a secret to getting nice tight miter joints? Well, I really like to use a sacrificial fence on my chop saw, and for this project I put a brand new sacrificial fence on the saw. And if you want to know more about that and how to make a sacrificial fence, I'll put a link on the screen. I made a quick drawing of the lamppost along with the moldings that I've used and the cut list. Now, this cut list will only apply to a lamppost or a column that's 78 inches tall, so if you change the height of the column, you'll just have to change those measurements. Now, when I was building this column or the lamppost, I talked a little bit about how to make sure the stiles were the same thickness all the way around the post. A couple of years ago, when I wrapped the posts in the upstairs of the barn, I made the mistake of not taking that into consideration, and I built all 4 sides of the post. And then when I went to assemble them, I realized my mistake. And it was kind of an easy fix, but again, it was because it was for myself, I can make that change. If it was for a client, then that would have been a problem. But let's just go upstairs, I'll point out the problem, and then I'll show you how I fixed it. Okay, well now we're up in the art studio, and these are 2 load-bearing columns that I boxed out a few years ago. And the big mistake that I made here was, instead of making 2 of the face frames a little bit larger, so you have the same measurements all the way around, I made all the face frames the exact same size. So when I went to assemble the column, I ended up with a 3/4 inch gap at every corner. And so the way I fixed that was I filled that gap with a piece of 5/8 cove molding, and at the top of the column I filled it with a 3/4 by 3/4 inch block. And so it all worked out, but at the time I didn't know what to do. I had to think about it for a little while. So it's just, it's one of those things where you could kick yourself, but at the end of the day, luckily, it all worked out. And I've since made a few columns with this design. So anyway, I'm probably not going to have a project video up this week because my kids are off school and we're just doing some things together and some things around the house. So I hope you have a good week. Thanks for tuning in.